Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 21st episode of WP Roundtable. Jason Crawford down here in Medellin, Colombia, and today we've got a special guest on, and we'll let him introduce himself.
Oh,
Kyle, you want to?
Hey guys, I'm Kyle Maurer, developer here at Jackson, Michigan, co-founder of Real Name Marketing. We develop WordPress websites for clients and make WordPress plugins. And grateful to have Jerry here with us today.
yeah, and oh, go ahead, Kellen.
Oh, all right, no problem. Kellen Mace, independent web dev, doing freelance client work. Kind of close to Kyle, east side of Michigan. Happy to be on tonight with Jerry Bates, learning some things. All right, now you, Jerry.
Okay, cool, guys. So there's no lower thirds for me, but I'm Jerry Bates, and I'm a happiness engineer at Automatic. And here's my business card lower third thing. So there you go. Anyway, so yeah, I'm a happiness engineer at Automatic most of the time, and actually for the last few months I've been donating my time to WordPress core. So I've been on a what we call .org rotation for the 4.0 release. And that's me in a nutshell.
Well, it was great to have you on the show, Jerry. Thanks for coming and talking with us.
That's right.
Yeah,
Enjoy the rest of your day.
yeah. We all know we could be out barbecuing right now and doing the holiday thing, but here we are keeping it real. So let's talk a little bit of WordPress.
Yeah, that's right. So we got the memo from the rest of the WordPress community. They want to know more about this Jerry Bates, a.k.a. Jerry Sarcastic. That's why we want to have you on the show today and learn a little bit more. So we got a whole lot of questions we want to go through. But usually we're going to start at the beginning. So I want to know, if you could, what were you doing before you got, like, not even before WordPress, but before you even got into the web stuff? You know, where did you start career-wise? What was your path to get here?
Yeah. Well, actually, WordPress kind of happened by accident for me. Before I guess it was 2008, before I was doing WordPress, I actually used to work at Apple Computer, and I used to be, so I was a photographer professionally before any of this, and I never done a lick of code or anything web-related. And I worked at Apple around 2008, and I was in there, in one of their photo studios on campus there taking pictures of products. And we all know in 2008 there were some pretty funky things that happened with the stock market and whatnot, and the housing market. And without a job or something to do, I just picked up a book and started learning WordPress. And you know, I didn't plan on it, but once I figured out that it was cool, I was all in. And I started my own business for a while actually doing that before Automatic. So yeah, you would have never guessed like a photography geek would end up, you know, doing this WordPress thing, but I guess it's kind of drawn us all in from different areas, am I right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think our last guest came in through photography as well. It was a photographer before getting involved in WordPress as well.
That was Brad, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I keep wanting to run into him at a WordCamp, but it hasn't happened yet. But yeah, I know he's pretty into the photography.
Yeah, he's been into a lot of things, and he gets a lot of WordCamps too. And I know your fellow happiness engineer Dustin Hartzler was on the show before, and he was an electrician, I believe, before he got into the web.
Oh yeah, that's crazy. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it turns out that the photography background ends up being pretty useful. You know, now that I've been helping out a little bit with, and I guess we'll talk about this in a bit, but WordPress TV. So all the money I blew on college for a degree I wasn't going to use, I'm using it now. Who knew?
Very cool. So Jerry, I'm kind of curious about, you said before you got into all this, you for a little while had a business centered around WordPress. What were you doing? This was client work, like setting up sites, or what exactly?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, when I started, actually, I did a little bit of graphic design for myself, just trying to get jobs doing graphic design. And I didn't have a website, so I started off just by I need to make myself a website. and with no money at all, I basically had to learn how to do websites. And that's kind of where WordPress came in for me. But with a bit of a background in design and photography, I then took that and, a little bit of CSS and a little bit of, everything else. And I opened a shop for myself for a while, and I did, websites for like small business clients and nonprofits and things like that.
Cool.
All of them built on WordPress. So WordPress is actually how I came to the web. And it was basically, in 2008, 2009, WordPress obviously wasn't a household name like it's starting to become. So I remember the early days for me were just about trying to convince clients, this isn't a blogging platform, you can totally do this. And then fast forward through a couple of years of private work with clients to, here we are, now almost 1 in 5 websites on the internet? Pretty insane.
Yeah.
So I did client work for about 3 years, I would say. And it kept me really busy, and somewhere along the way when I started, then I went to my first WordCamp, and that's when I became aware of the community and core and things like that. And somewhere around there I started then contributing directly to core, and that's when I found my final client, if you will, which is where I work now at Automatic.
Going into this before we got started, but would you mind sharing what that mental state was that pushed you into going and applying for Automatic?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I went to WordCamp San Francisco, I think it was in 2011, and that's when I was totally hooked. That's when I realized, this thing I basically built my business on and was putting bread on my table, was much more than just something I could use to build websites, but was a community of people that were really involved and really, really excited, which was pretty new to me. So I started, maybe with the forums and answering things in the forums, and then getting involved with some of the docs projects, and I managed to get a couple tickets in for 3.5, get my name in the credits. And that was the point where I realized that I was starting to give more time to the community than I was to going out and getting work. And if you do any private development, you know that once you stop working on the websites you've been working on and you haven't been doing something to fill the queue and get more people out there, that's when you realize, hey, you got to get going. And at the time, I said, this is really a lot of fun. I really enjoy this connection with people. I really enjoy sort of the everyone's all in and it's a meritocracy. And then from there I decided, well, why don't I apply at Automatic? Because if you're gonna go there, I wanted to go straight to the top and try there first. And that's when I made the shift from client work to working on WordPress, which is pretty awesome.
Very cool. All right. How about next up? We'll talk about what are your primary responsibilities at Automatic. Some of your day-to-day stuff that you're responsible for.
Yeah. Well, let's see. You guys talked with Dustin recently, so we probably talked to you a lot about what it means to be a happiness engineer, which is, obviously we're doing a little bit of help with people in support. So we're doing one-to-one communication with people in live chat and in the forums and in email in a couple different ways. Just basically helping anyone who's on the platform who is having a little bit of trouble with their site. And I was drawn to that because I really liked, probably when I was doing client work, I enjoyed training people on how to use their website almost as much as I enjoyed building the website. So that aspect of it really is what drew me into being a happiness engineer. And that's where I started out basically, but for the last couple months I've been doing a core rotation where I'm not a happiness engineer, although that's my title still, of course. But for the 4.0 release, I'm actually giving all of my time to WordPress core and helping out with this release for 4.0. So that's definitely been a real change for me. It's involved working a lot with documentation, which is actually something I'm also interested in as well, and one thing you do as a happiness engineer. And I think that kind of goes to say that when you're a happiness engineer inside of Automatic, you quickly find out that you are, you're like special forces. They're going to deploy you in one part or another part, and you're going you're going to learn how to become an expert in something, because it isn't just a dull like job at a call center at all. It's really super interesting work, and obviously we're working with some of the smartest people in the community, in WordPress in general. So yeah, it's not a job, it's an adventure. Isn't that what they say in the commercials?
That's very cool.
Yeah, that is pretty awesome, Gary, actually. And I'm curious about that kind of stuff. I've read the book, Scott Berken's book, Year Without Pants, and met a bunch of people who work at Automatic, and learned a lot about this interesting company. Read about it in the news, about your interesting culture and what you do, and we talk to people like Dustin and stuff. And I wonder about Happiness Engineer. You do a lot of support tickets, a lot of typical corporate environments. That's kind of a mundane task. It can be frustrating. It's not always the most fulfilling of responsibilities. But you guys do quite a lot more. It extends a bit beyond just answering the, I locked myself out of my website or forgot my password, support tickets, and things like that. So maybe you can talk about that, how get more specific, what your responsibilities extend to, what kind of cool projects you guys get to get involved in.
Okay, cool. Yeah, well, so I guess one thing that would make being a happiness engineer, a little bit different than your regular what you would consider a support job, and most people look at that as kind of like being a negative. I'm not sure about those kind of roles, but inside of Automatic, they give you an incredible amount of autonomy in what you do, and that makes a lot of sense because we're talking about a totally distributed workforce. No one's in a, we're not in a call center in Dallas-Fort Worth area, sitting together in cubicles. We're working as little independent islands, and that's very much kind of where the idea of having autonomy comes from. So that means that not only do we need to help people with their problems, but there's no script that we work from. There's no like tier 2, tier 3 kind of stuff you go through, like if you're trying to get a hold of your cable operator or something like that. So with that kind of autonomy they give you is a lot of responsibility to have a lot of tools in your tool shed. And I think that's maybe what makes this job more exciting for me, is that you do find as you do your work, you're troubleshooting, JavaScript error messages, or you're helping someone with a new feature that we're kind of working out some bugs on, or interfacing with Facebook, which is always changing things. And so there's a huge troubleshooting angle to it that makes it really interesting for me. But then also, as you go about your day-to-day as a happiness engineer, you touch so many different kinds of problems that you start to find the ones that you really like a lot more. And inside of the company, there's an incredible amount of latitude to, chime in on other projects. So if there's a new product or a new feature we're working on inside of WordPress.com, we'll have those conversations on an internal blog, and it doesn't matter that I'm a happiness engineer and I may not be a part of their design team or anything like that, but I can be totally a part of all the discussions they're having about these things that we're thinking about doing. Maybe it's UI decisions, maybe it's something dealing with flow. As a happiness engineer, actually, your input's pretty well received because you're the connection point between the engineers and the users. So you're pretty much encouraged to just go wherever your interests take you inside the company. Your day-to-day might be involving opening a lot of tickets, responding to a lot of emails, and that's definitely that's part of your job, of course. But beyond that, you're really allowed to just find something awesome and go for it. And we even do have people inside of the company. We recently had one of our happiness engineers that he got so good at being a developer that he ended up leveling up inside the company, and he's a code wrangler now. So it is possible, just even within the company, if you find something that you have a passion for and you're willing to put in the work for, that you can then find yourself being as a part of that team and no longer a happiness engineer. So the amount of movement inside of the company is really interesting to me as well. That's a lot of talking, so.
Yep, well, you're on the spotlight tonight. Get ready for more. You mentioned one other thing that I thought was really neat. I didn't know this before we got started, about you being the first non-coding type to do this, to work the core development like you are right now. You want to get into that a little bit and tell us how you manage to get involved in that? As how that worked?
Yeah, absolutely. So within the company, the .org rotation, as we call it, is something that's been open to developers for quite a while, and that means that no matter where you are inside of the company, what team you're with or whatever, you donate your time to WordPress core for that release cycle. 3.9, for example, or 4.0 in my case, and that's always been something that devs have been able to apply to, because you actually start working on things like features that are going into that release, helping with tickets to get things ready for the release, all the testing and whatnot that goes into it. But we all realize that there's a lot of community for WordPress that is outside of track, that's outside of the tickets and the conversations we have that are related to core and to features and things like that. And for me, that's a place I came from before Automatics. So just recently, they opened up the .org rotation to anyone inside the company who wanted to become a part of the open source project for that release cycle. Didn't have to be a developer or coder or anything like that, with the knowledge that there's enough going on in the community that anyone could give to that release cycle. It doesn't have to be lines of code. It can be other things, and all of that benefits WordPress overall. So in keeping with Automatic's mission of giving back to core and helping out in that way, we're now starting to expand that a little bit, so it isn't just developers, but it's actually people helping with documentation and support, WordCamps, all the other things that are involved in the WordPress community that you might not get a shout out for, and you might not see your name in the release credits for that cycle. So with that opportunity, I was just like, yeah, I'm going to go for it. I have I love documentation, I love video. Those are things I did before I came to Automatics, so I applied right away. And yeah, I'm the first one, if you will. So hopefully there'll be more. Hopefully I'll equip myself well. But for sure, it's been really exciting for the last 4 months to be doing what I did as a volunteer. Couldn't be more awesome, basically.
So your time doing this is going to kind of wrap itself up when 4.0 comes out?
Yeah, that's essentially the way the release works, or excuse me, the way the rotation works is that when the cycle is over, your rotation's done, and that'll be the case for me as well. But then, of course, some of the things that I've gotten involved in are really close to me, so they're probably things that I'm going to continue to be involved in even after my rotation is over. So, you don't have to do a rotation inside of Automatic to give to core, and there's plenty of people that are doing that on an ad hoc basis. You might want to consider it like 20% time at a company like Google or something like that. But I don't think anyone's sitting around watching to make sure it's exactly 20% or anything like that. So, I've been doing a lot for WordPress.tv to help with the WordCamp videos and things like that. And even though my rotation is going to end pretty soon, I'm sure that I'm going to stay involved in those and help drive some of the things that I've started, in my rotation, basically. It's a little different than a core rotation in that, there's no 4.0 that's going to ship for the things that I did. There's no beta, there's no release candidate. I've worked on some improvements for WordPress.tv that don't have an ending when 4.0 comes out. So I'm sure that those are things I'm going to want to kind of be involved in. And then someone else is also going to come in and do a rotation behind me and do something else that's really awesome. So, it's hard to go wrong from that standpoint, too.
Yeah, I know. I'd love to switch the conversation now, kind of go into WordPress.tv. There's plenty of stuff to talk about. And I've been following everything going on with .tv. Maybe we could start, before I've got things I want to comment on and ask about, but just for those who don't know, talk about what WordPress.tv is and what the moderator team is and your responsibilities there.
Yeah, okay. So, WordPress.tv is a site that we've all probably been to at some point. It started like maybe 2010 or 2011 or something like that. And it's really just a place where WordCamp videos and WordPress meetups and content of that type can go. Basically, it's your WordPress, your YouTube, excuse me, but for WordPress. And until recently, all those WordCamp videos that are coming in have been the responsibility of one person inside of Automatic to approve those, to get them ready for publication, and to put them online. And somewhere, I think it was I want to say 2013. Okay, so it was right about 2012, 2013. This is before I started at Automatic. Andrea Middleton, who's the one that was doing the work for WordPress TV before with getting content online, was just completely overwhelmed. WordCamps are growing every day, and there's new ones happening all the time, and it's growing to such a point that there's no way she could handle it. And that's when the moderator team was started. And it's all volunteer. It's basically anyone that has a passion for video or a passion for WordPress and for learning more, basically, to take the time to watch those videos and approve them and put them online so that it's not the job of one person. It's not stuck in that kind of bottleneck anymore. We had a problem before where a lot of WordCamp videos were getting shot and they weren't getting published. So the moderator squad was formed to get better at that, to basically take those videos when they come in, to look at them and add any content or information that needs to be added, like a link to slides or something like that, and get them online as quickly as can. And that was actually one of the things I did right before Automatic. So that was a team I was involved in starting up just as a volunteer, and then I started at Automatic, and I was did other things for a year plus basically. So when I started my rotation, it was a really natural place for me to go, because it's something I think is really important, that all the WordCamp sessions that you see, on WordPress.tv represent the sum knowledge, if you will, of basically the brightest minds of WordPress talking about how to make WordPress better. And no matter where it is now, and I think that there's a lot of things that can be done to improve it, I want to see it go to a place where it's the go-to, where people come to it for learning information about WordPress and getting excited about WordCamps without having to go to a WordCamp, basically. So yeah, that's WordPress TV in a nutshell, and it's been a lot of fun to sort of contribute to that for my rotation, for sure.
So, if I could, I think it's interesting to talk about a couple, just example new developments for WordPress.tv. I know of only a couple, and you could expand upon them or add others that maybe I'm not aware of. I know that recently you moved the blog for WordPress.tv's mod squad from P2 on .com over to the more communitycentral.org site.
Right.
That happened recently, and also very recently in the last week, I was reading a little bit about changes in the feed, like the Planet WordPress feed and WordPress TV video highlights have traditionally been included there, featured videos and such. And the format is changing through that. I read a little bit about it. Maybe you can comment on that.
Sure.
Talk about some of those things, like what's going on in the WordPress TV world.
Well, when I started my rotation, WordPress.tv was really kind of on the shoulders of one person. He's a volunteer mod. Hold on a second, guys. I got a little app thing I got to clear. So a volunteer mod who was keeping sort of everything going, and there was piles of videos coming in, and it felt like there was a real need to sort of start another group of moderators there. The cool thing about having my rotation to focus on that meant that it gave me a chance to build a lot of documentation that wasn't there before and start some processes just to get the squad that had started earlier back on its feet again, if you will. But then once you kind of get going in that process, you start realizing the other things that you want to fix and change and make better. And one of those was taking our moderator P2 and putting it on the actual network of sites that's on make.wordpress.org. And originally, when that moderator P2 had started, it was just a WordPress.com site that we as moderators used informally to talk about issues with video and things like that. The problem that it had is that we were actually a part of the WordPress community and nobody knew it because we're not represented on the community's network of sites at all. So if you're interested in getting involved in WordPress, if you're interested in docs or you're interested in support or even contributing code, there's a lot of places that you can go and get involved in those communities, and we weren't represented in any of that. But here we've got all these great WordCamp videos coming in, and we really need people to be able to not only process these and get them online in a timely fashion, but also do so in a way that's totally transparent and is something that the rest of the community can see and get a sense of the work that goes into putting all these videos online. So that was what, you know, motivated the move from just getting our you know, back channel website, if you will, out into the public so we could have that discussion with the rest of the community. And then on top of that, also, there's a lot of things about WordPress TV that I think, you know, could be a little better if we had more people involved in helping out on. One of those is curating really good content. So as moderators, your job is basically to watch a WordCamp video before anyone else watches it, and then if it's good enough quality, we'll publish it on WordPress.tv. But out of all the videos that we see, and that can be, you know, hundreds of videos over the course of a year, there's no editorial process that helps point people to the ones that are really good, the ones that have like that quality that almost feels like a TED Talk, you know, where you lose yourself into the presentation a bit. So I wanted to try and find some ways to, you know, surface that content a little better and get it off of the homepage, which, you know, they live on the homepage for a second and then they're buried. So one of the issues, I know this is probably a lot of back channel kind of stuff, but one of the issues we had with WordPress TV is we couldn't publish videos when we wanted. It's this really strange thing, but WordPress TV was hooked up to that widget that we all see in our dashboard, the WordPress news feed. So when you go to the WordPress news feed, you see the release notes for Core, you see stuff from WP Tavern, and you see videos from WordPress TV. The problem is when we get 40 videos from a WordCamp, there's no way to put those all online at the same time without spamming everybody's dashboard, you know, over millions and millions of users.
Good point.
Right. So what we've been doing is scheduling videos to this point. So we've had a backlog for the past month of WordCamp videos that, you know, we would love to publish right away. But we couldn't because of this linkage that had started a lot earlier when there wasn't as many videos. So one thing is to turn that off so we can publish our content as quickly as we can. And the day that we turned that off, I think we published 40 videos or something like that. Basically everything we've been holding on to for all these WordCamps that had been waiting to see, you know, a video of their session, we just put it all online. And from here on out, we just now are going to publish those without any delay. But we lost that connection with the dashboard. We lost that, you know, hey, here's what's going on with videos on WordPress TV. So instead, we're hooking that feed up to the blog that we have for WordPress TV, which is at blog.wordpress.tv. And we're going to start actually having moderators contribute staff picks and best of posts and start actually doing things that more actively, you know, bring up the content that we think is really spectacular that's coming to us every day, instead of just a dumb feed of everything that we see. Because one of the problems with WordCamp is that because it's volunteer run, you know, not every video that you see is going to come in looking like it was done by a professional videographer. You know, there's a large share of them that look like it's someone set up a camera in the back of the room, like they're doing a college lecture or something like that. But, you know, we've got this group of volunteer moderators who are looking at the content all day long. We're practically the best people to make a decision and say, you know, these ones are really awesome, let's feature this instead. So that's another change that hopefully gets us a lot closer to an increasing awareness of what's good about WordCamp videos, where I think when you go to WordPress TV sometimes, you see kind of an uneven mix of good videos and so-so videos, and those are mostly technical issues, of course, but they do kind of affect the stickiness, if you will, of the content. So now we can start actually using moderators to promote, you know, really good stuff, and hopefully get more people excited in the videos that we're getting.
That's some really great info. Thank you, Jerry. I really love WordPress.tv. When I was first getting into things, and I first stumbled upon it, or somebody had linked something, I thought it was awesome. Just as you described, to be able to tune in and see some of the brightest devs and designers and implementers and whatever else talking about the thing they're absolutely the best at, for free, just to watch that at your leisure is really awesome. And one of the things and tell me if this is correct or not, you talked about some of the issues with just the quality, because some of the videos are filmed just in the back of an auditorium, something like that at WordCamps, and some of the audio is low on some of the videos. I think, is it true that I think going forward, a lot of WordCamps are getting from WordCamp Central, they're getting a lot of the wireless mics to pin on every single speaker, so now they're going to have an audio feed that's pretty darn clear, so it should help with some of those issues.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually something that's been going on for a while. I think right now we have about 10 camera kits that are shipped out by the foundation to WordCamps that need them to video their WordCamp presentations.
Okay.
And one of the problems is, and this was something that I actually was aware of before I started at Automatic, was that we send out these kits, but we don't really have a lot of instructions on how to use them. So we were seeing a lot of problems on our end as moderators where, all the gear is there. Most of the camps, especially, here in the United States, are using the foundation equipment unless they've hired a post-production company or had someone volunteer professional video services. They're using a kit that we provide, and it just didn't have any good, like a quick start guide. It didn't have any setup on how to use the gear. Really just some technical manuals that the manufacturers provide in a case, and good luck.
Right.
And that's obviously going to lead to a lot of problems. And one of the problems that we see, of course, is that they'll put a shotgun mic on the top of the video camera. The shotgun mic is a pretty impressive looking mic because it's long and it looks like it might grab sound from across the room.
Yeah.
But when you put it in the back of a room, I mean, you hear people typing on their laptops, you hear coughing. And maybe outside of all the room echo, you might hear in the background someone giving their presentation. And it doesn't matter at that point how good the presentation is. And the fact is, most WordCamps have awesome presentations. But when you're filming it in that way, it sucks the life right out of it. So the camps that are taking time to either put it in their budget, obviously are putting out better video, but it should be possible to do that with just the gear that we're providing. And one of the other things I've been doing for my rotation is actually creating documentation for that. And I popped a link in the chat there for you guys.
Cool.
So we have a website called plan.wordcamp.org, which is where anyone who's planning a WordCamp goes to kind of learn, what they got to do to wrangle volunteers and get a venue and all the stuff that goes into, putting together a WordCamp. Before I started, there was a page with like 3 paragraphs on what to do about video. None of them talking about how to use the equipment. All of them talking about kind of other stuff, mostly because no one else who has been involved in building this documentation really knew or understood anything about video. And I'm not a professional videographer by any stretch of the imagination. I actually took, still photography in college. So I know studios and I know lighting and cameras and things like that, but this is not something I know super well. But so I wanted to put together some documentation that at least just gave people some resources. Here's what's in the case, here's what they do, this microphone goes with this attachment, you plug it in here, and this is how you're going to get good video. And so now, we've got moderators, we're starting to moderate the content, we are starting to actually single out videos that we think are of better quality and start, promoting those to people. And I think the third part of that equation is now getting better at, providing tools to WordCamps to take the equipment that we're already giving them and use it in a way that's going to give us just better content overall. And so hopefully that's where we're going to go. The documentation itself is something I've been working on at this point, but after my rotation, I'll definitely stick around to see what it does, because I think that this part is probably the biggest problem in why we don't have a lot of videos of WordCamp sessions on WordPress TV. And right now, that's less than half of all the real-life WordCamp sessions actually make it online at this point. Mostly because of technical issues. Mostly because someone didn't know where to put the camera or how to hook up the microphone. Stuff that is really actually easy to fix if you just give them the right tools. And so that's part of that. The other part of it is something that we're trying to expand on the moderator side, and that is post-production, so that camps that Another problem is we won't see videos from a camp for maybe 2 or 3 months, and there's camps that we've sent camera kits to that we've never, ever seen videos from.
Yeah.
The problem being is that when the camp is over and all the volunteers wander off, no one wants to really process all that video, which is time-consuming and takes computers and it takes manpower. So we're now starting to hopefully expand the moderator squad and build some processes on our end that make that more efficient, so that camps that can't actually do it themselves, we can help backstop them a little bit and help get their videos online a little bit faster. So, if we can do things to get more videos to us and get them to us faster and of better quality, I think it's a rising tide. That rising tide lifts all boats. It's better for WordCamps. It's better for WordPress TV, and I think ultimately it's better for WordPress and for anyone that's especially new to the platform that wants to learn more about how to use it.
Yeah. Well, very cool. Yeah, I'm a big fan of WordPress.tv and things like WP Sessions and WordSesh, things like that where you get to hear a lot of these speakers without, traveling halfway across the world to, WordCamp, Europe or wherever they may be, happen to be speaking on this topic you're interested in. So. Very cool. I have one question, just from a user standpoint, just from myself using WordPress.tv. Something that I've kind of wondered, and maybe you could knock it out for me right now on the air. So I'm wondering, a friend of the show, a friend of several of ours is Brian Richards. I mentioned WP Sessions a moment ago. He's kind of behind that very cool service. He had talked in the past about having those videos appear on WordCamp.tv, or WordPress.tv rather, after a certain number of months. I think it was going to be like either after they were 6 months or a year old or something like that. He was going to start putting them on WordPress.tv. I don't think that's happened just yet. That got me thinking, videos like that weren't necessarily filmed at a WordCamp, where would they go? How would you navigate to them? Because I'm on the site now and there's the links are along the top are home, WordCamp TV, how to get involved, blog, contact, and then below that, the few categories you guys have are latest videos and then popular videos. So I'm just thinking, other than searching for it by name directly in the search box, where would a non-WordCamp video be? Like under what section? I guess I should say.
Yeah. I think, well, you bring up a good point, which is that the site itself is starting to, it's getting, I think, a little long in the tooth, and it's sort of the problem with community-run efforts is that there's so many things to be working on inside of WordPress that, ultimately something like WordPress TV is going to have to be a priority behind some other things. So I think one of the challenges with it, the way it is now, is finding content that isn't on a homepage or on a tag page or category page.
Okay.
So yeah, so actually, I acknowledge that we have sometimes a discoverability issue with content on WordPress TV that I wish we didn't. The other part of that question is that also, aside from WordCamps, we get shockingly little else. Video. So part of not adding that to the navigation is about not having that content necessarily, but. Okay. I think ultimately the goal, at least as I see it, especially with some of the things with the documentation and giving people better tools to create better videos, is that aside from just having WordCamps create videos, we can also have local meetups start doing their own videos to a quality that allows us to publish them on WordPress TV, and also bring in other content that makes sense to do that as well. We actually have a way to do that right now on the site for you to upload. You could even upload a how-to video on like how to use the media library in the dashboard, for example.
Could you? Okay.
Yeah, and we have that how-to tab that's there. And the problem is that we haven't had the content that's been good enough yet to really publish a lot of that. So for the how-to stuff, we haven't maybe been clear with some of our guidelines, and we get a lot of people who are putting in their logos or putting in promotional materials or stuff. And at the end of the day, WordPress.tv is a community resource. It's not a place for advertising. So that kills some of our content. That also can be a problem with some of the meetup stuff that we get from larger meetup groups that'll film their presentations.
I see, yeah.
Of course, they have a little bit more of a local kind of angle, but that includes also, if you're going to speak, you're going to kind of plug your stuff and things like that, which we as moderators kind of have to tread lightly with. But I think also if we made it clear what we wanted and also made it clear how to get the quality that we want, and the content starts coming in, then you make all kinds of justifications for what you can do with that content. In terms of getting it up in navigation, in terms of possibly even looking at WordPress.tv as needing a design refresh at some point, I think that right now none of that would really make sense because the quality of the content that's coming in should drive that and should actually, help us to decide, well, what can we do to make this site better based on the content that we get and the content that we want to get. So I'm kind of trying to think about it from that perspective and really focus on those things. We'd also be pretty interested in doing something like syndicating to YouTube at some point and, maybe doing a better job on Twitter and Facebook and things like that to start, really getting out there our message that some of these WordCamps are the best presentations out there and you should watch them. Our blog posts are probably the first step in that, but I think at some point it'd be really awesome to have a Vimeo channel which is actually backed by WordPress Central or WordCamp Central, excuse me, and is a go-to place for just the best of the best. And I think that that's something that would actually do a lot to improve our reach and do a lot to actually drive growth of WordCamps in return too. Maybe the same way that now people go and look for a local TED Talk in their area, probably because they saw a TED video on Facebook at some point and said, hey, that's cool. I really want to be a part of that. There's no reason we can't be doing that with WordCamps. It's entirely possible, and I think it's just a matter of sort of putting things together. Which for my rotation anyway has been about kind of getting on that path a bit.
Yeah, oh, very cool.
So Jerry, moving along and touching on other topics, we talked a lot about WordCamps here, meetups and stuff like that. What can you tell us about your involvement in the community outside of the office, outside of the front of your computer? Do you get out to meetups? Do you get out to WordCamps? Do you volunteer? Do you speak? Do you organize WordCamps? Which WordCamps do you go to? Just where can people see you in real life?
Well, so I haven't actually been out as much as I should. I admit that sometimes when you work for Automatic, it's very easy to stay in your safe and secure home environment. I've been starting to go more to local meetups in my area, and I think for where I am, which is Silicon Valley, there's a couple good meetups, but I also feel like there could be more sometimes. So I know that one thing I want to look into after this rotation is being more of a driver of maybe some things in the community here locally for me. It doesn't help us sometimes that we're in the shadow of like San Francisco and the big WCSF that's coming up, for example. So I'd like to do something that sort of represent here, which is the birthplace of personal computers. Should have more of a WordPress meetup presence than it does, I think, currently. But the really cool thing about being an automatician is that I do get to travel around to WordCamps, and to date, really, I haven't been to too many. I've been to Seattle, and I've been here to San Francisco a couple times, of course, because I'm local. But especially now that I'm taking a real involvement into the video side of things with WordCamps, I want to get out to more camps in general, and also the people I've met in the community. I think one of the really awesome things about WordCamps is that it's that place for you to put a face and a name and even a handshake to someone you've been chatting with for months online at that point. So I don't have a list, maybe a wish list in my head of like where I want to go with camps, but it's definitely something I want to do more and more, and also take an active role, hopefully, at those camps in seeing if we can build a better process around video too, and do a better job of capturing what we all know we feel at a local level when you go to a WordCamp, which is just amazing energy. Getting that into the video. And as far as speaking, actually, it's funny. I used to speak pretty frequently on the local level when I had my own business, and I used to do like seminars and things like that here and there. So I do enjoy presenting, but since I've become an automatician and I've become surrounded by so many incredibly talented and intelligent people, I have been I've had some stage fright. I've been like, I don't want to get up in front of a WordCamp until I know I have something that is so authentically my message to give that I'm ready to speak on it. That might also be a part of, because of, my involvement with WordPress TV. We do see that, there are speakers that make the circuit that give the same talk at 2 or 3 or 4 different camps.
Yeah.
And I would never want to be that person to put together a bang up talk and then go deliver it in a bunch of different places. So that's probably also made me stop and think, well, there's so many people that have such really great stuff to bring to WordCamps. I'm going to wait until I have my authentic thing to say, and then I'm gonna start speaking a little bit more. And maybe what I'll speak on is like how to do good video. Probably at this point I have something to say on it. But yeah, getting out in the community is definitely something that I want to do more, and this rotation has put me in touch with, I think, probably after a year of being a happiness engineer and, really being focused on WordPress.com and now being able to then kind of expand back out again. So look for me. I'll be in your neighborhood at some point here.
That's awesome, Jerry. I'm glad to hear that. All of us kind of are on a very similar quest to get more involved in the community. There's a big driving reason behind starting the roundtable. We want to get more integrated and connect with other people and meet people like yourself without having to fly to San Jose. So anyway, hours winding down. We want to do something. We're doing a new segment at the end of every episode. We're going to talk a little bit about something that's happened in the WordPress community, and I thought it'd be cool to get your take on something that broke the news recently. We've got a friend who was on the show a couple weeks back, Sam Hotchkiss.
Yeah, Sam.
Yeah, I met Sam a couple months back at a WordCamp, and we hung out at a couple WordCamps since. He came on the show and told us all about Brute Protect and Hotchkiss Consulting and his interesting ride and the Word Camper and things that he does. And Sam's a really, really cool guy. And then this past week, we read about in the news that Brute Protect had been acquired by Automatic. So I thought that was super, super cool. That was not even talked about. It was a big surprise, but really exciting one for a lot of people. We're all really happy for Sam. You have any thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, okay. I'll tell you just from my perspective. Obviously being an automatician and being involved in the company that acquired them, it was a really cool surprise for us too. It wasn't something that I knew about, for example, being as involved as I am on the .org side. But I haven't had a chance to meet any of those guys, and we're going to get that chance real soon because we're going to have our company-wide meetup and get face-to-face with everybody. So I'm really excited. I know a little bit about the product just from what I've read and just from playing with it a little bit here and there. But what I'm really excited about is more kind of what it brings to us in terms of our DNA. These guys are huge in the community. They love WordPress so much that they, not only did they decide to start this company just on their own, give up their client work and start building something they believe in that no one else was building, but here to be acquired by Automatic and actually now become part of that project. And then of course obviously the functionality of Brute Protect, we're looking to roll that into Jetpack, which I think is super awesome because given I know not every developer out there loves Jetpack, but from the consumer level, they certainly do. And to have that many people with that many Jetpack sites that have something really awesome like Brute Protect running on them to help strengthen their websites, it's hard not to see that as a win for everybody. And the fact that it's going to be going into Jetpack and going out into all the .org installs, it's not something that's going to be just for WordPress.com, but it's something for the entire community. I think it's pretty super cool. Yeah.
I think so too. I think you put it well, that it's a great addition. I think moving into Jetpack is just like a perfect fit. Brute Protect to me seems like a really, really great addition to just kind of our whole community at its core, what Brute Protect does. If anybody wants to learn more about it, obviously you can go back and watch episode 17 of our show, and Sam talks about it at length. It has a great core function of logging all IP addresses that have attempted to brute force attack a site, and so when some IP attempts to brute force attack on one site, that's logged centrally with Group Protect servers, and the rest of the entire community using Group Protect benefits from that information because they get blocked, globally for everybody. And so it's kind of like a kismet in concept, where there's a central, kind of monitoring system that's like just helping keep everybody safer. So where one person kind of just helps benefit the whole by running it. I think it's just a perfect addition to Jetpack. And at Automatic, there's a whole team devoted to Jetpack, the Jetpack team. I think I've met a couple guys at WordCamps who work on the Jetpack team. And they're definitely doing some cool stuff, and Jetpack has been kind of like really evolving in recent times, I think. I've heard a lot of people in the community talk about the direction they think Jetpack is going. And this is a good example of it going in a new direction where it's really kind of good for the average WP user and consumer. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. That it is, when I was doing private development for clients, and I remember Jetpack was just starting to get some of this functionality in here that made it the good all-in-one plugin for a lot of solutions. And I find that that's, especially coming true in some ways with, there used to be a little bit of, I would call like the Wild West of contact forms, for example, where it's like you got to go through like 5 different contact form plugins to find the one that's going to work with your site for your client and is going to work with all the other plugins you've got with that site for that client. And I think Jetpack does a lot to just sort of, resolve that. All the stuff works with everything that's built into it. It's a good community player overall. And then obviously the Brute Protect just adds a bunch to it as well. But just overall, I think the cool thing about, for me personally now, so before I started at Automatic, I really didn't know a whole lot about WordPress.com. I would say that, because my business depended on developing websites, and that's what put food on my table, of course, I would go .org all the way. But as a happiness engineer, you start to develop a real appreciation for the services that are built into WordPress.com and how they all work together and how well they all work together. And it's pretty amazing that we have millions and millions of sites, and we don't have widespread problems like you might have with a lot of self-hosted installations. And to see some of those things going into Jetpack and knowing that they work really well on our platform already, I just think of that in terms of, well, there's a really good choice for, for someone who's starting a website and doesn't know what they need. Here, you've got Jetpack on your site, you turn on all your things, and it works. And we know it works because we use it all the time. So it's hard not to like Jetpack. And obviously they're involved with the community. So, you see a lot of those guys at WordCamps and things like that and contributing back to core. So that team overall, I think, is pretty awesome and does a pretty good job of representing themselves and being involved in the community.
Jerry, you brought up a good point that I wouldn't have thought, and that is, I know a lot of people when they get started off blogging, they come over, or when they start getting into WordPress.org and self-hosted sites, they come over from a WordPress.com site, and a lot of times the first thing they do is throw on that Jetpack to get that custom feel that they would have, that feel of I shouldn't say custom, comfortable feel that they had in WordPress.com. And until you said that, that a lot of new people are using it, it didn't dawn on me how important significant that could be for the future of WordPress as a whole. Because, yeah, security has been not necessarily an issue with the WordPress site, but how people set them up and what people don't know can hurt them in this case, I guess. And bringing that right into a plugin that is so well used by those people who are transferring over and don't understand that security aspect so far, I think that's a great point that I would not have thought of until you kind of mentioned that, the fact that those people are coming in new with that. And I think that can really help the reputation of WordPress and the future, the direction of WordPress in the long run. So I'm really glad you pointed that out, because I wouldn't have otherwise thought that this was a big deal, but now that you mentioned that, it seems a little bit more important, Jimmy.
Yeah, I think so. And obviously the security thing is, it's one of the first things people go to. Maybe not as much now as it used to, but like WordPress is insecure. You wouldn't want to use WordPress, you know. But WordPress.com is incredibly secure. It's secure because of the services, or not the services, but the infrastructure we build, of course, you know, and what we do and how we run the service. But it always scared the bejesus out of me when I did client work to know that, you know, here's someone who I built a site for and they're on some GoDaddy shared hosting, and, you know, I probably shouldn't hate on GoDaddy because shared hosting in general is a bad idea, as we all know. But just, you know, to have stuff like this you can just switch on that gives you that level of security, it's like, it's so huge. All right, well, I'll keep talking about it. Obviously, I'm preaching to the choir here, Jason.
Right. And I'm sitting here thinking, you know, about the adoption, because Brute Protect, you know, going from a premium product to now included in Jetpack, all of a sudden it's, you know, why wouldn't you be running that on sites?
Yeah, I think it's going to be on by default. I'm not 100% sure on the deployment plan for it, though. I mean, obviously,
yeah.
Being involved in the .org side, I haven't been keeping track with it to that level. But it seems like, yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you, you know, have something on by text people? Yeah.
Just no more cost barrier is what I'm, you know, getting at.
Oh yeah, that's right. I do forget that, yeah, that was something that people would pay for, and it was really kind of a nice gesture that even though it's not ready for prime time with Jetpack yet, that as soon as we acquired the company, we basically made the plans free. So
right.
we put it on their site right now.
Exactly.
So you don't have to have the free version. You can do the premium version and, you know, get that level of protection right now, which I thought I didn't know that was going to happen, but I'm like, wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, it is really cool.
Jerry, we're winding down here, just about the final moments here, and so I wanted to run through just a quick couple of questions, short answer type thing, just so we can get a few other things figured out. First off, I want to know what's next for Jerry Bates. What's coming up? What's on your horizon? You talked about a couple things. You're going back to your happiness engineer role. You've got other things you got to maintain and you want to keep doing with. You talk about other people in the automatic company who have leveled up, you said, gone in different directions, variety of projects you can get involved in. Short term, long term, where's Jerry Bates going to go?
Wow, I think that probably one of the cool things about Automatic is that that's a really hard question to answer, even if you think you know, because the company itself obviously is changing and evolving so fast that, you know, you don't know, for example, when we're going to acquire a new company or start a new something, or even within ourselves, just, you know, create a new product division or something. So I think, you know, short term for me, starting out is really just kind of plugging back into that. It's been an incredible opportunity to get to work in core and to get back to my roots, but also to get the opportunity to, you know, build up a training program and, you know, create something that's lasting. And I know that when I go back into happiness, I want to take whatever that is and bring that back to the .com side. That could be better documentation. I'm not, you know, at this point sure if it involves training programs or something like that. But I know that a lot of the things that I got to do for my .org rotation really were explorations of things that I was already interested in, like creating video and curating video and things like that. So where those things take me inside of the company, I'm not always sure. What I love is that as an automatician, I have the opportunity to find that out. So yeah, I'm going to go back to my quote unquote day job, and I'm going to start helping people one-on-one. But it's going to bring with it some excitement again for core and for the larger WordPress experience. And from there, who knows? You know, maybe I'll find myself back here in some capacity again, helping out with the community. Maybe I'll find a way to duplicate this on the .com side and make it even a better platform for the people that, you know, we're inviting every day to start an account and, you know, and build a site with WordPress. So, whew, let's ask that question again in a couple months, huh?
All right. You have maybe a good example of a plugin or even non WordPress tool that you use that maybe we haven't heard of?
Oh wow. So So something that we use, inside of Automatic all the time, and I think it's in an open beta right now, where it's like an invite-only beta, is the predecessor to P2, which we call O2. And if you spend any time using the P2 theme for team communication or things like that, there's some things that we're doing with the O2 theme, which is actually it's a plugin actually, so you could use it with any theme, ideally. That takes WordPress, at least for me, in like a whole different direction than it is now. It's a site that you use without ever going to the dashboard. It's an excellent way for communication, and we're baking in some really cool stuff with using JavaScript and things like that make it just so many thousand times better than P2s. That one thing I'm not going to miss from my time in community is all these P2s I've been communicating on. So that's not a plugin anyone can go out and get right now. That's not something that is available for download. But it's definitely something that I think is worth looking out for, because it's going to, if I was doing private development right now, it might be how I would interface with clients, for example. And it's going to be a good thing for team communication for people who don't want to use Basecamp or something like that. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I think that's going to be really cool when it starts getting a wider release.
That's awesome. Maybe a couple other real quick ones, then we'll call it, my friend. Maybe you could name some folks in the WordPress community who really inspire you, and also at the same time think of people that you might suggest that we could consider inviting on the show to learn more about.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always impressed by first of all, I'm always impressed by anybody who gives their time, to the community, and it's not a paying gig anymore. There's one of the moderators who I work with on a regular basis. His name's Michael, who has been the guy behind the scenes with WordPress TV for the past year and keeping things running. And it's amazing to me that someone can put in that much time and energy into keeping, something that we all take for granted going. But, I can't think of anyone who doesn't work harder for the community, and yet who isn't someone we would call a WordPress rock star just because we don't know their name necessarily. So if you ever want to talk WordPress TV ever again, that's someone I would heartily recommend. Beyond that, I think really it's just down to the people who you see every day. I'm trying to think. There's this. I've been helping out a little bit with the theme developer handbook and the plugin developer handbook. Are you guys familiar with that at all? Yeah, I see some head nodding. Okay, that's good. So,
yeah, vaguely, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So those are, obviously those are two handbooks that are looking to be the open source online version of WordPress for Dummies, but it's going to teach you how to create a theme or teach you how to create a plugin, and that's something that we have people that are contributing to right now. And there's a guy who I haven't met in person yet. His screen name's Topher Kenobi, and he's been helping out with the plugin handbook, and he's been just like a one-man wrecking ball lately in terms of helping to get that out the door. It's projects that have been talked about and finally have gotten underway as a way to replace the codex, the WordPress codex that we all know and sometimes love, with something that's a little bit better and a little bit more current. And and that's someone who just came from out of the blue and just started putting in mad hours and mad effort into doing something. And that always amazes me, that someone can put that much effort and energy into it. But when those handbooks come out, I think they're going to be totally cool, and people are going to realize, there's a lot of people whose names aren't in the credits of WordPress, when you see it in your dashboard, but are doing really hard work there. So that's one. There's also a few on the in the community side. There's a training subgroup, and what they're working on is training, like curricula, if you will. So let's say you're a local WordCamp and you want to have workshops, but we all know it takes a lot of effort to put together a really good kind of workshop. So they're working on curricula that would allow you to just basically take a ready-made session and teach it at your local WordCamp or your local meetup, excuse me. So there's a couple people around that. Courtney O'Callahan and Little Jimmy, who are heading up that effort. And that promises to be really cool because that's something that, you know, it takes the workshops you see now, some of which are for pay, some of which are for free, and starts to formalize it and make it an open source curriculum for learning WordPress, you know, in a live environment by taking a test site and breaking it, for example. So yeah, so there's things that are happening that aren't in core that I think are really interesting, and a lot of unsung heroes that that you see in there. You know, I'll email you a bunch of people's names if you want.
That'd be great, Jerry. Thanks, I appreciate that. Great suggestions, and very funny that you go that direction. Because Topher Kenobi, real name's Topher DeRoja, and he will be on our show on the 22nd of this month.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Already scheduled, and actually, when I was out working in Grand Rapids a couple weeks ago, we were hanging out and chatting together on Contributor Day, and he was talking about the time he was putting in on the contributor handbooks and the theme handbook and the plugin handbook. So he taught us all about that on Contributor Day, and he's going to come on the show, and I think that's 3 weeks from now, and talk about that stuff and a lot of other really cool stuff that he's been involved in.
That'd be cool.
Thanks for your great suggestions, and
I'm glad you're on top of it already, Kyle. Good job.
Yeah, that's a good coincidence because Topher is a really, really great guy and lives at least in the same state.
Oh, very cool.
Right. Yeah. We need to. So when that comes up, that's on September 22nd. Topher's on the show, so we need to call him by his nickname that you just coined, the one-man wrecking ball. That's good. That's what it's got. That's what it's got to be.
Yeah.
The one-man.
Make sure we put that in.
I like it. I like it. I'm sure he will.
I'm sure he will. I know Topher will like it.
Yeah, I mean that guy deserves a pat on the back for just like getting in there with both hands. I think.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I like Topher.
Yeah. Well, if you want a chance, you're more than welcome maybe to join us on the show that day and give him a pat on the back yourself.
Cool. Yeah, I might. I'm flying that day, but if I get a chance to get an internet connection, I'll try and tune in.
All right. Thanks,
cool, man.
Okay, so just to wrap things up, people want to get in touch with you, they want to meet you, they want to talk more with you. Where can they find you, real life and online?
Well, you know, I go by the name Jerry Sarcastic pretty much everywhere in the internet. So that's Twitter, that's IRC if you happen to be in any of the WordPress channels in IRC. That's my name on Skype, so Jerry Sarcastic on Skype, or jerry@automatic.com if you ever want to drop me a line via email. You know, happy to take any and all takers. So absolutely, come at me.
All right, Jerry. Thanks for joining us today. It's been a really, really insightful one, and I'm really glad to know that Kyle is actually on the ball and getting people out that you recommend before you recommend them. And
right.
But it's been really inspiring about getting into the community, and you brought a lot of good points out that I'm really excited and maybe going to look at some new ways that I can get involved that I wouldn't have thought about before. So thanks for coming out.
Yeah, my pleasure. I would do it anytime, guys.
Next holiday.
Your holiday. Yeah, no holiday.
Right.
Any other time.
Thanks, man.